Hey everybody, you are tuned in to Hanging with Here to Zen, the show that is a place for people who love all kinds of music. We really hope you enjoy your time with us today. Make sure you hit subscribe if you already haven't, and hit that notification bell to be kept up to date. We would love to hear from you over on our social media platforms, so just search Here to Zen and you'll find us. Lastly, could you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or Google Podcasts, or wherever you're going to be tuning in from? Those reviews help other people to find us, so we appreciate the reviews and the support. Thanks so much for tuning in. When are you flying out?
We fly out Sunday night. We leave LAX. Tuff and Pretty Boy Floyd are on the same flight. I'm not sure if any of the other bands are on the same flight, but we arrive in Brisbane on Tuesday morning. By the time we clear customs and all that, get to the hotel, I guess it'll be in the afternoon. And so we'll be in Brisbane on Tuesday night, and then Wednesday's the first show.
Perfect. So who's going to be with you in Tuff on this run?
Do you know who Tuff is? Are you familiar with the lineup?
So you've got Todd Chase on
Correct.
bass.
Todd Chase. Chason is the original bass player. He's the guy that founded the band, and he's the guy that gave me the job in '87.
Yep.
Todd T. Burr is our drummer, and we call him T because his name is also Todd.
Yep.
And at some point it was confusing with two Todds, but realistically we call Todd Chase or Todd Chason, we call him Chase.
Yep.
So the other Todd we call T. T's been playing with Tuff off and on for 20 years.
Yep.
And oddly, when Todd Chase had quit Tuff at the end of 91, early 92, he was out of the band for 15, 17 years. He had formed the thrash band, a darker band, heavier band in the 90s. T was his drummer.
Right.
So they played together for about 10 years. Then in 2001, right after I'd reformed the band, I was looking for a drummer, and at some point T came into the mix. So he's been playing with me off and on for 20 years. But there's a history between me and Todd and T that's 3.5 decades. And T is actually originally from, he lived in Phoenix for many years as well, which is where Todd and George and Michael formed Tuff. So they were part of the circuit in Phoenix together,
Yep.
in the early days. And then Billy Morris plays guitar with us.
Yep.
And Billy's most known that after Joey Allen left Warrant in the 90s, mid 90s, Billy was brought in.
Yep.
He was a very good friend of Janie's. They knew each other from Ohio. They're both from the Cleveland area. So Billy's played guitar with us for almost 20 years now.
And he's got a wicked food truck.
Yeah, him and Todd have a food truck business together in Ohio that's done very well.
Yeah, and I know of T through his teching because he teched like In Excess and Def Leppard for a while. Def
Leppard and Cinderella and all that. Yeah. Correct. He's been to Australia a ton.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, I think we caught up last time he was here with Def Leppard.
Right.
So I don't want to sound like this is a bummer, but in 2023, the endless parties of 86, 87, 88 are behind us. So what is a day in the life of Stevie Rachelle?
Nothing like probably most people think.
Yep.
I mean, first and foremost, I'm a father.
Yep.
I have 2 kids. Our son is 17, about to be 18. He's a senior in high school. And our daughter is just turned 19. She's a freshman at UC Berkeley in Northern California. And I say our because they're technically not just mine.
Yeah.
Their mother, obviously, and me created them together. So I love being a dad. Our kids are awesome, but they're basically adults now,
Yep.
So the days of packing lunches and holding hands and juice boxes and little backpacks and being a chaperone on a field trip or going to, daddy daycare at the school for the afternoon and being an assistant, which I've done. That I don't have to do that anymore. So metal sludge has been part of my life for 25 years almost. So every day there's something to do with metal sludge that goes on. I started my own independent record label in 1994 after being signed and dropped multiple times by record labels. So in the course of that 25 plus years or whatever, actually more, that the label's been around, I've put out 50 plus records.
Yep.
Not only of Tuff or myself, but other bands that I signed and put out obscure recordings, demos, Wild Side, Nitro, John Corabi's Angora, Jailhouse, a lot of Sunset Strip kind of era bands. So, I do a little bit of everything. And then obviously I sing in Tuff, I manage Tuff, I run the record label, I do all the merch, the mail order. I also sing with a German band called Shameless that's been around for 20 plus years. We put out 8 studio records. I've probably done, 15, maybe 20 plus various tours around Europe. I sang for a Brazilian band called Tales from the Porn, which we put out a record about 4 or 5 years ago. So I've been to Brazil with them a handful of times. And I go to the gym pretty regularly. I love to watch UFC. I love football. I do a lot of stuff. And it's not all 80s hair band, rock and roll, Sunset Strip stuff either. But I wear that proudly. I'm not ashamed of where I came from. And, some of the old photos of me oiled up wearing a towel and a Speedo that were in teen pop magazines in the 80s. Hey, man, that was me at 21.
And look, I'm glad you're one of the people flying the flag. Like, so the last Shameless album, Skunk did another great job with that last album.
So
and
also, Alex.
Yeah, I know Alex. Yeah, I saw him last time he was at with Cherie.
Right.
So he flies the flag proudly too. And speaking
100%.
from a dad point of view, I've only got one left in school, so I look forward to those days of no more lunch packing myself. Yeah,
I mean, and here's the thing, I tried to explain this to the bands, and I've worked with younger bands, as you maybe remember. I also managed a Scandinavian band, a Swedish band called Veins of Jenna, who I kind of helped discover and put on the map. I worked with them for about 5, 6, 7 years. And, there's very few spots at the top of the ladder. Only a few people get to be Fred Durst, Lars Ulrich, Nikki Sixx, Kid Rock, Axl Rose, Madonna, Pink, Michael Jackson, Prince, Dave Grohl at this point. There's only a very few that get there, and there's all kinds of rungs on that ladder of success, and guys go up and down it all the time. And being a D-list hair band from the Sunset Strip, that was, the 3rd or 4th wave of whatever that came from this era, that walk of sidewalk between the Whiskey and Gazzari's and the Roxy and, all those clubs there. But we've put our foot in the ground deep enough that there are fans. There is fans. And, that's obviously proving to be true right now, that, the Glam Fest is going to host not 1, not 2, but 3 of us from the Sunset Strip: Tammy and Faster Pussycat, Steve and Pretty Boy Floyd, myself and Todd and Tuff. Obviously, Chip is from, and Enough's Enough is from Chicago. But obviously their debut came out in '89. We all know each other. We've all played shows together. We've all been friends. We've all been on the stage and been backstage, and I knew all these guys before, most of them, before anybody had kids. Or anybody was even close to 30 years old. We were all in our 20s. Now we're all screaming towards 60, and a few of us are probably past that. So it's something that, I do unapologetically, and I've continued to do for not only me and Tuff, but with Metal Sludge, my website, and the music that we put out to make a statement and say, this is who we are. And you can like it or not, I mean, and I know that, you don't have to sell millions of records to be successful. And the definition of success has got a whole variation of definitions as to how you want to see it and view it,
Now, I was actually going to ask you about Veins of Jenna later, but I'll ask now.
Right.
Do you think they literally shot themselves in the foot? Because they were such a good band.
Yeah, to an extent I do, because, I discovered them. I saw them play the Whiskey at the Crew Fest, July 30th, 2005. Nikki and Jackie had just graduated high school a month earlier and literally just turned 18 years old. Jackie's older brother, JP, the bass player, was 21. Lizzie was 23, essentially the old man in the band, but looked 14. And, two of them are brothers. Two of them went to school together. They all grew up in this little town called Falkenberg, Sweden,
Yep.
Closer to Oslo, Norway, or Copenhagen than actually Stockholm. But they had something, and something was in the water over there with Hardcore Superstar and Crazy Licks and Crash Diet and 69 Eyes and all these Norwegian, Scandinavian, Swedish bands, in variations of it splintered into, Reckless Love and, things like that. I really thought that Veins of Jenna was special. They had that factor, that it factor, that star quality. There's something about them. And it wasn't just because I'm saying it. When I brought CC to Poison to see them, I had to twist his arm. I thought he'd stay for 60 seconds. He stayed the whole show, and he said, "Stevie, that singer kid, Lizzie Devine, that kid's a star. You got something there," with his hard New York accent. Stephen Pearcy, loved him. Tracy Guns, loved him. Warren DeMartini, loved him. Bam Margera saw him. I want to sign him. He saw them for 60 seconds. He looked at me, he goes, "I'm giving you a record deal. Give me your phone number. I'm calling you tomorrow." Kat Von D, very, very famous for her tattoo work. Anybody and everybody that saw them said, Gilby Clarke, "There's something here, Stevie. I don't know what it is, but there's something here." The first, I met them in July of 2005, and in May of 2006, I brought them to LA. And I said, "You're going to stay at my house for 3 months on a 90-day visa, and I'm going to take you to the Sunset Strip, and you're going to walk up and down that strip, and you're going to fuck every girl you see. You're going to drink all the beer you can, even though they weren't even old enough to drink it. And you're not coming home until you get a record deal." And and it happened. And at some point, when I brought them back the first night, I picked them up at LAX at like 8:00 on a Friday night. They had just flown for 10 hours. And they got off the plane. They were so excited. I said, "So are you guys tired? You want to get some food and go home?" They go, "No, we want to go to the Strip right now. Take us to the Rainbow." I took them to the Rainbow. We sat down at a seat. It's 8, 9 o'clock. And at some point, some guy walks up to me. He goes, "Hey, me and my friend over there trying to figure out who you guys are. Who are you guys?" And I said, "My name is Stevie. I actually manage this band. They're from Sweden." He's like, "Oh, my name is, whatever his name was, I forget it." He goes, my friend wants to come over and talk to you." So this guy comes over. I recognize him right away. It's Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. He's like, "Hey, man, who are you guys?" "My name is Tom." I said, "Hey, Tom, how are you?" "I'm Stevie Rachelle from Tuff." He's like, "Hey, I thought I recognized you." He's like, "Who are these guys?" I said, "They're from Sweden. They're called Veins of Jenna." They weren't in town for 2 hours. And the guitarist from Rage Against the Machine walks up to my table at the Rainbow and says, "Who is this? We can't figure it out." Because everyone's like, "Is it Tiger Tails? Is it fucking part of Hanoi Rocks kids? Like, who the fuck are these guys?" So from the minute, and then of course, every time they went on stage, I invited everybody. And of course, I was waiting for people to go, I don't know, they suck, But everybody that saw them, like, the only thing that everyone said is, they need a super hit. They need Crazy Bitch. They need, Livewire. They need something that's going to stand out. That's going to be that hit song that's going to push them over the top. So sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent, but yeah, that band was special. And they definitely turned some ears for about 5 or 6 years there. But, at some point, started getting older, late 20s. They're getting burned out. They're fighting. The singer's pissed at the guitarist. The guitarist is pissed at the singer. This guy's fucking that guy's girl. Like everything was just, and it imploded,
Do you still keep in touch with any of them now?
I hadn't talked to half of them for a long time. Me and Lizzie had kept in contact, and obviously he's got a great new band called the Cruel Intentions. Nikki went off and formed, did some other music. He recently became a father. Lizzie became a father. Lizzie's son, I think, is like 3 years old now. Lizzie got married. JP and Jackie, I hadn't talked to in a long time, the two brothers, but recently last year, JP, the bass player, reached out to me, and we got in, touch through social media and said hello, and everybody's living life. At this point, Lizzie's in his 40s. you know,
Yep.
and the other guys are, I think JP's going to be 40 this year. And the other guys are in their late 30s. And, when I met them, they weren't old enough to drink beer.
Yeah.
So just goes to show you, it's almost 20 years later. Time flies.
Yeah. Now behind you, I see the debut Tough album up on your wall there. And
Yep.
recently you got the rights back and you did a remaster. Explain to everyone what the process is for an artist to try to get his rights back. Because it's just not like, oh, can I have my album back?
No, I'll tell you right now, I had to jump through a lot of hoops, and it was the better part of a couple years. But pounding on doors, messaging people, emailing, asking questions. At some point, Steve Brown from Trickster, I'm sure you're aware of who Steve is. Great guy, love Steve. He put me in touch with some people that helped speed up the process. He knew some people that worked through Warner Entertainment. Or Rhino Entertainment, Warner Music Group. And at some point, I got not the rights to own it, but to license it.
Yep.
So I put out What Comes Around Goes Around remastered. This is also a gatefold.
Lovely.
And it's got a color insert. Obviously, we did a variation of colored vinyl. There's the traditional black. There's a white vinyl. There's a hot pink purple vinyl. We also did the CD, which is it's a deluxe version. So it's got, a 16-page full color booklet with, various photos from the merry-go-round session that we did for that record. I own all those photos as well. So we put together a cool package, and the reaction's been great. It sounds amazing. It looks great. And I've had a lot of people say a lot of nice things, not just fans, but other guys in the industry that said, wow, man, that record really held up and it sounds great, Will
you be bringing any down with you?
Absolutely. As many as I can get in a duffel bag, and, they'll be there at the shows until they sell out. I can only bring so many. Vinyl. Yeah. A box of vinyl is
heavy.
Heavy. Exactly.
Yep. Look, I was involved in the recent re-releases for the Union albums, doing the artwork and stuff for Deco. So I understand the licensing, and it's never fun. And yeah, they're damn heavy.
Yeah, no. And that's why when people like, oh, why are you doing this? Or why is it so expensive? Or why is that? Or how come you didn't add this? Or how come you didn't do it this way? How come you didn't make, blood red vinyl? It's like, there's only so many things you can do. But at some point, as you know, the process of making it happen, it's like you said, it's not like just like, hey, it's Stevie from Tuff. Can I have my album back? Oh, sure. We'll send it over right now. FedEx it on the way. It's like, well, let me talk to Joe Blow. And Joe Blow tells me to talk to Tom and Dick. And Dick tells me to talk to Harry. And Harry says, fuck you. And then call Tom again. And, email. And it was a lot of work, a lot of hoops to jump through, but we're stoked that it happened, and the reaction's been great.
And just sometimes finding out where the album is now is the hardest part, because so many companies go bust and get bought, and divisions are made. Like, I think it took a couple of years to find who had the rights to the Union records. So, I can imagine you would have made probably about 100 phone calls, if not more.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, we were signed to Atlantic Records, and at one point the catalog, and for the fans listening, catalog means older. Like when I was on Atlantic Records, when Tuff was on Atlantic Records in 1990, the catalog was Foreigner or Rush, or Genesis or AC/DC, the old catalog on Atlantic Records. And Tuff and Skid Row and Kicks and Mr. Big and Tattoo Rodeo, we were the new baby bands that they were getting ready to push. Well, a decade went by, and then by the 90s, Atlantic Records was pushing Stone Temple Pilots, Sugar Ray, and so at some point when I was trying to dig it up, at some point I came to the realization I was referred to Rhino Entertainment and Warner Music Group control the Atlantic Records catalog. So I had to deal with people from Rhino and Warner regarding, a release that was over 30 years old. And at some point when I was speaking to this woman who was basically the person that was in charge of it, she was in her late 30s. So she was like 5 or 6 years old when this record came out.
Yep.
And by the time I got her on the phone, I just said, hey, just so you know, my name is Stevie Rachelle. I'm a singer, and I was in this band called Tuff that was signed to Atlantic Records in 1990. I also have my own independent record label. I've released CDs and DVDs and VHS and even vinyl and modern product. How do I go about getting my record back? And she's like, well, when was this? And I was like, well, here's the deal. This is where it came out. This is who produced it. This is when we got signed. This is who was in charge. And Jason Flom and Kevin Williamson and Titanium Records and Atlantic. And I'm throwing all this stuff around. And, you know, again, she was probably in kindergarten.
Yep.
But now she's in charge. So she's like, okay. So at some point she puts me in touch with this library and an audio library and an arts library. And then, of course, she says, you know, you have to tell us. There was some type of form I had to fill out, you know, who are you? What is your affiliation? What are you going to do with it? Where are you going to sell it? What are you going to charge? You know, and there's things you had to follow. You know, the one thing that they were very adamant about is you cannot change the cover art.
Right.
They wanted the cover art to stay the same. Now, when we got signed, vinyl was going out of favor, but it was released on vinyl in Europe. It was released on CD and cassette in America, CD and vinyl in Europe, and then CD only in Japan. So there's 3 CD versions as well.
Right.
But they were very adamant that the cover stayed the same. And if we wanted to do anything with the tracks, like maybe add a bonus track or a rough mix, that was a whole nother set of parameters we had to jump through. But I was like, no, we're going to stick with the same 10 songs. Just as it is. But I said, you know, instead of it just being a regular jacket, can we do a gatefold? So that had to be approved. The back, or on the CD as it's called, the tray card.
The tray card, yep.
You know, how you line it up. This looks different than the original vinyl piece did. The original didn't have a lyric sheet with it, so we wanted to add that. All of that was okay. But at the same time, we had to at some point submit the artwork and have them approve it. And there was a few things, verbiage regarding Warner Music Group and Rhino Entertainment, and in association with Atlantic Records copyright in 1990, 91, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, a lot of I's to be dotted, T's to be crossed, and hoops to be jumped through, you know?
Yeah, fun. Now, quick sludge talk. It's been around 25 years this year. I'm a proud forum follower.
Awesome.
Okay, now, a lot of bands got it. A lot of bands embrace sludge.
Yep.
1 or 2 didn't. We know who they are. Is there just one that still holds a grudge today?
Yeah, well, you know, Sebastian Bach and Bobby Blotzer are the two, you know, the 2 guys that I think if you mentioned our the Metal Sludge name or my name, Sebastian might implode on the spot, you know? And it's funny because I know a lot of people that work with him and been in his bands, and we have tons of common friends, but you know, he's just a guy that, you know, I mean, here, the proof is in the pudding. Whatever happened with Skid Row, at some point you would think over the years that they could have been able to bury the hatchet, but I mean, no matter who they had singing or whatever they do, Sebastian just can't control himself to come out and say something that's just like, oh, dude, you know, you were doing so good for like 9 months and now you just shit all over yourself again when it comes to Dave Sabo or to Rachel or to their new singer or whatever, you know, it's like he continually made fun of and mocks them. My latest record's been done since 2 singers ago. Ha 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 ha. You know, I mean, he recently said that, you know, so it's like, come on, dude, you know, regarding sludge, you're right. Most guys get it.
Yep.
There was some guys that probably didn't get it at one point, but at some point they came and realized it, you know? And when I started it in 1998 with my then partner, Sean, you know, there was just a whole list of ideas like, hey, let's do this. And of course, we had no idea where it was going to go.
Yeah.
There was no social media platforms. There was no Twitter, no Facebook, no Instagram, no YouTube, no TikTok, none of it. So we were a place where people could gather to talk about the bands that they liked that were no longer cool, the Motleys and the Poisons and the Skid Rows, and of course even the obscurities, the the Nitros and the Sleazebees and the Johnny Crashes and the Tykettos and the Tuffs. And we had no idea it would ever make money. We had no idea that people would advertise or buy merchandise with our logo on it. And little by little, we just kept adding to it, and people started looking at it and reading it and sharing it and joining in, and people would follow us and create their little moniker, their own name. I'm Blackie Six, or I'm CC Michaels, or whatever, because we created these fun little names. But it's just something that I didn't know where it was going to go. It was just part of who I am as well. I was always kind of, for lack of a better description, sludgy, on the road. When we had a crew of people, there was a chubby bass tech, he would get the fat jokes. George was the shortest guy in the band. Hey, midget, get in the fucking van, So it was a little bit Howard Sternish or Jackass-ish when you were with Tuff. Somebody had a fault, my hair was kind of thin. Guys would call me Baldy. Baldy, come on, let's go, So little by little, everybody got a little ribbing. And I think that's like that in a lot of groups. When you get a group of guys and you're hanging out watching a soccer game or hanging out playing video games or eating a pizza, fuckface, get me a beer, You're telling your buddy, you're calling him fuckface, but you wouldn't want to be anywhere else than hanging out with him.
Exactly.
But at some point, you're going to call him fuckface. Dude, let's go. Where you at? And that's kind of what Sludge was. We were busting everybody's balls. And, like you said, most guys got it. But at some point, people got offended. And there's a few that still harbor a grudge. Yeah, and that's why I look at it when people go, why are you still doing it? Like, why are you showing up? And there's, Christ, I've played shows where I've showed up and there was 30 people there. We played, I played with Alex and Shameless. We played a place in France one time. I don't remember. It wasn't Paris. It was somewhere else. Maybe Etienne, France. And we're there. It's raining out. We're playing in this pub. And we played downstairs in basically an old bomb shelter. We go down this wrought iron spiral staircase. Had there been a fire that started, we would have got trapped under there. We would have died, But almost nobody there. And when I say nobody, like literally 20 people, 22 people were there, mostly guys, older. And we set up, no stage. It was in a basement with a couple of speakers. We're on the same floor level as the guys in the crowd, monitor. The system was very, thrown together. And it was rough. But after about a song or two, like I wasn't even using the microphone. I was like, blah, blah. I was like, hold it. I don't even need this. Like, hey, guys, so check it out. We're going to play you something off the first Tuff record. I was literally talking to them like they were in my living room. At some point, that show took off, and we played an hour and a half. We played every song we could have that I knew from Shameless, or that Tuff, that Alex and Boris knew for Tuff songs. And we just had a blast. Everybody was singing. We were high-fiving. The guys bought a ton of merchandise. And it was like, at the end of the night, I was like, this show was great. And we literally played in front of 20 people in a basement with 2 monitors and 1 little speaker, So it's not always about how big of success you have or how many records you sold or how big the crowd is every night. These little footprints we leave, that I've left singing for Tuff or the bands I've worked with and going to different places and getting recognized or having people show up and go, when I was 16, I bought this record and Good Guys Wear Black is my favorite song, and then we play it and they're singing every word and they're pumping their fist. I see me and them when I was seeing bands when I was 18 years old and saying, wow, this is really cool. I want to be that guy. I want to be on stage,
Perfect, man. I'm going to let you go for the day. I will see you next week. I'll have my camera in hand to take a bunch of photos of everyone. It's going to be a great night at Glamfest. Awesome, dude. See you Wednesday.
Dude, can't wait. Thank you so much, Andrew, for all your help.
Easy done. See you then.
Okay, buddy.
Thanks. Bye.